And a good morning to you. Lanny Ford, Ford Rumber along with you. Still don't have much voice. Is what it is. He got in there and danced around inside of my head and my sinuses, and I still can't quite get over it.
You sound good. I mean, you sound like everything's fine.
And it feels like I'm congested, and I know I'm congested in my head because I've been a mouth breather for 2 weeks. The procedure was 2 weeks ago today, and when I went for my recheck about 3 days after the surgery, he said, I liked what I saw when I finished. He said, you're going to have swelling for a couple of weeks and, kind of congestion and stuff. But it's getting better, and I think I'll be happy with it when it's all said and done. But it's just one of them things is going to take just a little bit of time to get there more than anything. Couple things. I'm a big college softball fan.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Oh, yeah.
It's boiling down. There's I think it all ends up on Thursday. There was a game on over the weekend that involved Tennessee and UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it was a great game. I mean, Tennessee just happened to be one of those that just refused to go away, and they got a great program. But anyway, here's what happened, and I get aggravated because of the way that it happened, but UCLA, I want to say this was it was late in the game. I can't remember if it was 6th or 7th inning. Anyway, UCLA hit a 2-run home run, had one on,
right.
Hit a home run,
right,
to tie it up, make it 4-4. When the batter came in, the whole team was there at home plate. She missed home plate. You could see she missed home plate. The girl that was up next to bat saw her and immediately was pulling her back to touch home plate, which she did. The problem is that according to rule,
mm-hmm.
unless you're a part of the play, meaning a runner in front is the only one that can help.
That's right.
Okay? And it was an Olympic game in girl and women's softball that the United States lost because of that rule. So anyway, this is what happened. She was assisted. She did miss home plate, but they went to Appendix G.
Okay.
And Appendix G this is what's reviewable. Here's the thing with me. If play A is reviewable, then play B, C, D, E, F, and G. Every play should be reviewable. Nope. Why? Then don't make any of them reviewable.
That's my point.
But we've that genie's already out of the bottle. You can't do
that's
that.
My well, but that's the problem.
I understand.
To your point, they're doing it, and that's the problem.
But you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that's
where
where
100%.
That's where my problem lies. My problem lies in that you can't pick and choose what you're going to go back and look at.
Well, I think the only thing that should be reviewed anyway, sportsmanship.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
And a lot of people, you're like, well, they got to get it right. They got to do this. Well, records are going to be skewed because of reviews. So then we have apples and oranges.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we need to use technology. I'm not opposed to it, but I don't like what you're talking about, the limitations of it. If we're going to get it right, let's get it all right instead of what we choose to pick and choose.
And that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree with that.
And I'm not just talking about girls softball or men's baseball or NFL, any of it. Anything that has a video review, anything that you can either – and in women's softball, each team gets 2 challenges through the 6th inning, and then it becomes umpires reviewable.
Right.
And that's kind of like, in football, in the NFL, when you get to the last 2 minutes, that's a booth review. A team can't initiate that. Yeah. But I have no problem with the reviews. I just don't want you to pick and choose what you want to review. I would like to see the logic that's behind saying, okay, we're going to review this, but we're not going to review that.
Right.
And here again, I think this is what it boiled down to, and they never did say, but it boiled down to there was not anything in Appendix G that would allow you to review a runner assisting another runner, okay? Mm-hmm. They could review the touching home plate, but I think it was the other that was the problem.
Yep.
And I think it was because you shouldn't have to review that because you can see that.
Well, too, I know you got to touch home plate and do all that. Once the ball goes out of the park, does it really matter? It's just a formality, to that point. Let's just go ahead, hit the home run around the bases, get off the field, and let's go to the next
Okay,
thing.
now here's my other rub with that, okay?
No problem.
Here's my other rub with that. And the announcers made reference to this. There are some teams and some coaches that when there is a dinger like that, they won't allow their team to congratulate at home plate. They'll congratulate at the dugout,
right.
In front of the dugout.
Right.
So that nothing like this happens because I blame the player because she wasn't concentrating enough on what she needed to get done before she started her celebration. It's like football players that break loose and drop that ball before they cross the goal line because they thought they had crossed the goal line. You got to finish the play. I don't
disagree with any of that, but football, the ball hasn't left the. It hasn't left the arena. It hasn't left the stadium.
Yes.
In baseball and softball, when you hit the ball out of the park, it's out. Just touch the bases or, do your thing and then get on in there and be done with it. Formalities, things get sticky because it's like you said, you choose to review certain things and you choose not to, but that means you choose to pay attention to only certain things but not other things. That's the problem I have. I would be 100% okay to do away with all reviews in any sports, get rid of everything, increase the level of efficiency from the officiating, by holding them accountable and actually paying them, a very good wage to be able to do a good job. Okay, that'll increase it. That'll increase the performance all the way around.
I'm still trying to figure out all the money that is generated, in sports. I'm trying to figure out why officiating is not a full-time paid position because of how much hinges on, especially with what they've done with legalized sports betting.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the reason that they don't because, betting a lot of times has – all the factors and things that go into it and all the algorithms and all these things are based on human interaction, right? And then in the end, you come in and then you have, reviewable plays. And I can see both sides of it. I just don't like it. Because it's a game of people, not a game of science.
Yeah.
And we're trying to evolve things. We got guys that are teaching things on the internet with hitting where the first thing you do is drop your backside and try to lift the ball.
Right.
And do it, and whether people agree or disagree with me, I that's fine. I really don't care. I've been doing it long enough to know, what success looks like and, that there's not one way to do it. And, I know that Tony Gwynn was a much different hitter than Robin Yount and, and Mike Schmidt. So the dynamics of science are incredibly important to try to help make you better. But what did we hear for so long? Trust the science? I don't know. I think you just keep trying to discover and find – I think what you need to do is trust the truth instead of the science. And, the truth is – if you can stand up and hit the baseball, then you try to maximize on the way that God made you and the abilities you have. You may be a better ground ball hitter, more consistent driving down through the ball than a lot of kids swinging up. We have things like what they call qual charts and, all these different, measurements.
Yeah.
Lane, they do in football too of, well, this guy's really fast, so it doesn't matter if he comes to practice or not, or it doesn't matter if he comes to summer workouts. He's really fast, so we're going to put him out there. Stuff like that, right? Talking about football or basketball, whatever. And all of this just boils down to the discipline of something. When she doesn't touch home plate, me personally, I'd like to see it be called out. All right, but the way things are today, just hit the ball of the park and just go on and get it over with, and let's move on to the next thing. Well, trying to have cake and eat it too on too many things, and in the end, it's about human interaction.
But here's the thing, and I'll go back to this. I'll ask you another question. So, should you have to run the bases if you put one out of the park?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I don't. That's a great question.
Next question.
Yes.
If I'm going to intentionally walk somebody, should I have to throw them 4 balls?
Okay. I think.
Or can I put them on base?
I think you should go ahead and just put them on.
Okay.
But because of the traditions of certain sports, that's not allowed. Like Major League Baseball, obviously, you got to, throw the 4 balls out there. I would just like to see that. I mean, you know what you're going to do. You go ahead and just put them on. Now, they do that in high school.
Right. And I didn't know where they did or if they could.
Yeah.
I didn't know how that worked in other sports. I know you just don't do it, in college and pros.
Well, I mean, think of it like this. You got a guy that's a great hitter up there, and your pitch count, which I absolutely hate.
Yeah.
They have. I hate it. But, it's another discussion for another day. But if I have a pitcher that's in the 40s or 50s in a pitch count, and he's a starter, and I plan on him going, what do they call it, 105 or whatever, I'm probably intentionally walking 3 or 4 people in a game.
So you can hold the pitches.
Right, yeah. So because you're wasting a tremendous amount of energy trying to get big people, or big hitters out.
Yep.
That I just know as a pitcher, I wasted a lot more energy, even if the guy wasn't a good hitter. I wasted a lot more energy trying to get bigger people out than I did worrying about the smaller guy that's up there that's a great player.
Right.
Because I knew he couldn't beat me. All he could do was just hit it.
Right.
I didn't care.
Right.
But the big dude up there could potentially drive it out of the park.
Right.
And like Chad Mullis, who's, on here quite a bit with us. When I played South Caldwell, they had a lot of big guys. I had to use a lot of energy to try to pitch against them.
Right.
And they had some great guys that weren't real big that were great players too, but I really didn't worry about them beating me as I did the big guys.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are like, no, I'm not talking about feelings here, okay? I'm talking about my experiences.
Yeah.
And, science, I think science is trying to replace strategy. And I think at some point you got to merge the two. But there's just
but yet
things are not as interesting to me with all the stuff on TV that they can do.
Okay, all right. Now I'm going to go back there because you kind of contradicted yourself just a little bit. No, because I know how you feel about certain things.
Right.
Strategy should be your top thing as a coach.
Yes.
Okay.
I would think so, based on the evidence and the experience you have with your players.
But one of those things that you absolutely despise that is strategy is the shift.
No, I'm okay with the shift. You talking about in baseball?
Yeah.
No, I think the defense should be able to set up wherever they want to set up.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that before. That there's a lot of people that don't like it. But it's like in football, if you wanted to run a 6-2 or 6-1 or 5-3,
I think anything that's inside the rules, you just do what you want to do.
But they're catering again to offense, just like they do in NFL with MLB.
Yeah,
and you can't do that. You have to make your offense better than your defense. And we haven't even had a chance to talk about the NFL voting down to do away with the. Basically they call it the tush push, which is scrum play. Yeah, they should. That is a football play.
Well,
there is a problem if you want to outlaw a football play.
Well, what they did is they hunted so hard for some injury data because that's usually why they make rule changes.
Yeah,
and it's not there.
Yeah, it's football.
It's not there.
No.
And the problem is it was whether they like it or whether they want to admit to it. It is completely focused on one team because they can't stop it.
Well, but see, that's the issue. We're so worried about what everybody else is doing instead of worrying about what we're doing.
Yeah.
I've heard people comment, well, that team should have won state championships. All they did was run the wishbone, and they had all these athletes and can't do this. And I'm like, first of all, that's how they got there. Second of all, you look at Tarboro has run the T for the last 96 years.
Yeah.
Tarboro still runs the double-tight T and has probably the most athletic team, and this is not going out on a limb, but if you look at them and the way they move and the way they play defense, They have the most athletic
Yeah.
team that you can imagine.
Yep.
But they line up between in the box,
Yep.
and they run the football. So, I think there's a bias towards, well, I'm smarter and I do this and I'm so innovative and this is how I do what I do. And what the Eagles did was they said, you know what? You can be smart all you want, but we're going to take our second-round quarterback who has first-pick character as a person, and we're going to put him back there along with some running backs and big dudes, and we're just going to mash you and motor grade you. Oh, we don't like that. We can't let our 4 or 5 defensive ends go out there and see how fast they are and run. And
Right.
You know what? It's time to get back to playing football.
There again,
okay?
you're playing inside the rules. The NFL brought that back.
Right.
You could assist the runner. You couldn't pull. You could push. I want to say back in 2005.
Sure.
So, and I don't understand why they brought that rule in. I don't like the rule, but it is a rule that's in. Don't start changing it because somebody's successful at it
That's
and
right.
other people are whining because they can't stop
I
it
think
and they can't do it.
I agree with you, Laney, 100%. I think they brought it back because people were starting to get away from running the football.
Yeah. To kind of give them a little advantage.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were like, wait a minute. Everybody's kind of spreading out here. The West Coast offense has now evolved even further and gone to the spread with, Hal Mummy and Mike Leach. And, they're trying to incorporate these things in NFL. And I'm sorry, Laney, but when I see a playoff game that's 6-3 and I got people spread out all over the field, that's just not intriguing to me. And I wonder if either team would have run the wing T or, the offset I if they would have scored more than 6 points or 3 points.
Yeah.
Then that's a fair question.
I got when you talk, you brought up Mike Leach. This just popped in my head. The College Football Hall of Fame has made a rule change, and basically they made this rule change so that they could get Mike Leach in, the late Mike Leach. Okay.
Yeah.
They lowered the minimum winning percentage required for eligibility. The threshold is set at 59.5%, was 60%, because Mike Leach had a 59.6%.
That's a ridiculous rule anyway.
And that's kind of what my point. Now this starts in 2027, and the bad part about it is that's like it's just an arbitrary rule to me. When you talk about Hall of Fames, and one of the things we haven't talked about since this happened either, Pete Rose has been taken off the permanently banned. I think Shoeless Joe has. So some of these guys may have an opportunity. This is correct me if I'm wrong. The Baseball Hall of Fame is not the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. It is the Baseball Hall of Fame. They are not directly connected. Is that correct?
I think that's right. I really do not know the answer to that.
I believe that is correct, but it was kind of an unwritten rule by the way they did it. But to me, I'm okay with this because I think that was an arbitrary rule that shouldn't have been in there.
Yeah, it's stupid.
I got another one for you. Let me give you this one. Let me go back to baseball since it is baseball. Chase, Robert, Mike, Ronnie, Andrew, Ronnie, Kerry, a lot of guys out there watching this morning. You've scrolled off my screen. I apologize. Did you see where Tampa Bay Rays shortstop Taylor Walls got ejected?
No.
Let me tell you why he got ejected. I didn't understand why he got ejected. I saw it in the highlights, but I had to look up why he got ejected. He got ejected because he tapped his helmet. He said unintentionally he had just adjusted his helmet, and then he did that, and the umpire threw him out because in spring ball, if a batter wants to question a ball and strike call, that's what they do. So the umpire took it as offensive to him.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't. Why did they give umpires that type of power? Because, to borrow a phrase from you, he got his feelings hurt.
Yeah, I do understand about the ball strike. Okay, I get that. That should never be arguable. It is. Science and entitlement has really elevated this. It's not any different today from an emotional standpoint than was 50, 60 years ago. People don't like the calls. They're going to say something about it. But what's happened is over time is the entitlement. You can't say this to me or you can't do this has set in too. So it's kind of like where does the axis meet,
Yeah.
on that to your point. I just like I don't mind guys being in control of the game and doing a good job. I know that Brad Thiede, who was a official here before he moved back to Wisconsin for a long time, Kevin Bumgarner, I thought did a good job. I mean, there's many of them around in our area, just naming a few of the guys. Frank Snyder was a really good umpire.
Yeah.
As well, baseball umpire. He was very good. And, I thought they did a good job of maintaining control of the game, what was allowed, what wasn't. If any stuff started, hey, that's a warning, next one, you're gone and the coach is gone.
Right.
And then that stops it. And that way it allows you to stay intense without getting emotional.
Right.
And I think that's important. I know when Brad was calling a game, if I had a question about anything, he was going to answer it. And he would also tell me, hey, I missed it. And you know what?
Yep.
I'm going back to the dugout.
Yeah.
I said, you got to give me like 30 seconds and let me act like I'm mad, and then I'm going to go back. And he said, okay.
But the other side of it is you appreciate it. You're not looking for anything back. You're not looking for a makeup call. Just let me know that, you missed that and that happens. But, I don't know. Because I'm not a quote-unquote baseballer, I at least want balls and strikes right, because sometimes it appears to me umpires get way too greedy about I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like you. Yeah. All I want is a consistent opportunity for everybody that plays. Yeah. Go back to the softball game you got tossed from. You weren't complaining about one side. It was terrible, period. Yeah, every call was
kids,
bad.
Yeah, the kids from West Lincoln, like my niece was pitching for Maiden, and the kids of West Lincoln were so confused.
Right.
That and they work just as hard as the kids at Maiden.
Sure.
Do. And I watch them come in and out of the facility across the street, or follow them on Facebook and do this and do that. And I have a history with the guy behind the plate.
Yep.
And it's not been a good one. And I go there and I watch him, not bothering anybody, and all of a sudden I see him start pulling his stuff again. And I'm like, you know what? Today's not going to be the day, because I am that guy. Anytime I want to be, I can be. And I was.
Yeah.
Because the kids deserve better than that, and attention needed to be called to it, because there were only 3 hits in that game. This is 2 teams. This is over a year ago.
And this was late in the season, if I'm not
the
mistaken.
Conference tournament.
Okay.
I mean, a lot was at stake here for these kids that have worked really hard. And, he just wasn't having a bad day, because he's a guy that makes everything about him.
Right.
And I'm not doing that. I'm not sponsoring, a conference
and that's why,
and a home team and all these things. A trophy's got my name on it, okay? A conference championship trophy, when we're not giving our best effort. And you know what? If people don't like it, I don't care. That is the standard that is set when my name's going to be put on something. You're going to do the right thing for the right – doesn't mean I'm perfect. I make mistakes too. You know that. You've watched me coach. Nobody's perfect. But I interact with people and kids, and I set a standard, and by God, you better do your job.
I just want it right.
And if you're having a bad day, I'm okay with that. But when you make it about you, game over, bro. You're going to throw me out, because I'm going to call it out. Right. You know what? I'm old enough and been doing it long enough where I don't care about that. It's not about me.
Right.
But it's about making sure the kids get what they deserve. And those kids from West Lincoln, it was bad for them.
Yeah.
It was bad. Their pitcher was very consistent, all right? Their hitters were really good. They weren't getting anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Maiden thing. It was – I mean, I've watched these young people grow up on here in this community, both communities.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go out there and watch that.
Yep.
Again, very clear. If it's a bad day, that's okay. That happens. When I worked with umpires when I was coaching American Legion, I worked very close with David Brown. He was head of our umpires. Seth Keener said, how did so-and-so do last night? I said he had a terrible night behind the plate. I said, golly. I said, yeah. I said, he just had a bad night. I said, send him back to my place tonight. Where's he supposed to go? Well, he's going to chairman. I said, no, send him back to my place, put him behind the plate. Let him work on it again. I'll work with him. You try to make everything better. The problem is like you said, when the ego side of things gets in. And that's a fine line. Well, you shouldn't have said this. No. I'm going to defend every young person.
If you just do it right.
Against a bunch of friggin' adults that act like idiots. Every time. I'm going to do it every time.
Yep. No, I agree.
And you can ask locally if that's true or not. You can ask statewide. Q Tucker's gotten several calls from me about this pitch count. Robbie Cowie the boy that pitched in Lincoln, who was a very good basketball player, he was a great baseball player too. He had to come out. They were beating North Lincoln several years ago, 1-0. The bottom of the 7th with 2 outs, he reached 105. You know where they put him? Shortstop. But he can't finish the game pitching because of the pitch count. They ended up getting beat 10-1.
Is North Carolina one of the only ones?
No, there's a lot of them.
So it's a lot of high school.
Well, what it is everybody jumps on a narrative, right? They're just repeating things they hear. They don't know the research, the science behind it. You get a couple of surgeons on there, so I'd never let my kid do this. Oh, my God, a surgeon.
Well, there's a lot of surgeons that would never let their kid throw a baseball.
Well,
period. You know what I'm saying?
Ridiculous.
But you know what I'm saying.
That is so damn stupid, okay? First of all, it's like when I'm going to give you a great example. Quinn had never wrestled a day in his life. In 8th grade, I said, "You're wrestling." He was like, "What?" I wanted him to know what it's like to go out there. Football he already knew, but wrestling you really know.
Right.
To get put on your back and get pinned down, and nobody's there to save you. You got to get up.
Yep.
Your mommy's not going to come out there and rescue you. That's why, you do these things to help raise your children through adversity so they don't run out on their wife and the kids when the times get hard when it's 3 o'clock in the morning, the baby's crying.
Right.
Okay? I can't handle this. No, you can't. Okay? And that's your mom and dad's fault for not doing a better job raising you. I call them out.
Right.
Because Lanny, before I had kids, I was a teacher for 8 or 9 years before I had kids.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of great ways to do things. I saw some ways not to do it. And this whole thing about her not touching home plate, which all this circles back to, listen, if you're going to have the rules, all right, let's play the game all the way through.
Right.
If not, then just hit the ball out of the park and then just do your little celebration thing, because that's all that matters is, doing the celebrations and the hugs and the tap, the helmet and all. Look, hit the home run and get your ass off the field.
But and do that.
Nobody
cares. Do that once you complete the play.
Yeah, all these
Don't
things.
Let that,
I see all this crap on here about, hey, look what we did today. Nobody cares.
Let me ask you this question.
Just play the game hard. That's what they care about.
I think Ronnie is saying that this happened. Do warm-up pitches count in the pitch count? They do not. Okay, so it's only once the game starts.
Yep.
So how's that different?
It's not. That's my whole point.
Okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
Let me be very clear without saying a bad word. It's asinine. Mm-hmm. It is. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
There's no bearing on a certain number of pitches that keep somebody healthy. I was the type of player I could go out and throw 3 pitches and I need about 4 or 5 days off.
Yeah.
My arm just couldn't handle it. It wasn't trained appropriately.
Right.
I got another kid that I coached years ago in Legion Ball that could throw 140 pitches, and 2 days later he's ready to throw again. He wasn't going to the majors. He wasn't even going to play college ball. He was just a kid that loved playing baseball and could just throw. You're going to ruin his arm. I said, what the hell is he saving it for?
Yeah.
Let him have the experience while he's young. You're taking all these things away in the name of safety. Let's go back to the COVID thing. We can't play football, but we can wear a mask that actually opens up like this that you can put a mouthpiece in.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, dude. What? By the way, we ain't never going back there.
Right.
Okay. Gen Xers are pissed. We stayed in our lane. We're the sandwich generation. We take care of our parents. We take care of our kids. It's over.
Yeah.
We ain't going back, okay? I don't care about this, that, or the other. We're going to, as long as, we're involved in things, it's just the way, it's going to be tough love. And that's the way we are going forward because we got really soft for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me give you, I got 2 more things, so I'm going to get your take on them. The first one, this is a topic that is never going to go away. It's never going to die. And that is all the, I guess, external things around the NFL draft with Shedeur Sanders. Deion continues. Now, that is his son, and I understand he continues to defend, but there are things that he did that were not done professionally, whether he likes it or he doesn't like it. And I don't think anybody was picking on him because he was Shedeur Sanders. I think that the biggest thing was, to me, I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback. Can he be a franchise quarterback in the NFL? Probably on one of the 32 teams. But, he came out and they had been expectations of what he would be. And then once they saw it and they saw what I'm going to call the maturity side of it and decided, look, I can't make that kind of investment. I'm not sure what I'm getting here.
Yeah, so what happens is in the end the market dictates the true value of something. Because the value is based on the need. And then also, does the need of something that I value is the baggage that comes with it greater
Right.
than that need or value? And I think the market dictates a lot of times where, or most times where things fall. And in this case, that is where it is. Think of it like this, Laney. Do you they do this to Shedeur Sanders, but how many coaches have you seen that are great coaches? Urban Meyer, he could go anywhere he wants, or he should be able to go anywhere he wants to go. But why would they not do that?
Yeah,
he's the best coach that there is. Players that play for him, you got some say, "Oh, he was mean to me," and he didn't know what he did was he was brutally honest.
He made you be accountable.
He was brutally honest, and in a period of everything's about me and my feelings, that wasn't acceptable.
Right.
But what it does is it lowers the bar of you being as great as you can be as a player and a person when you don't have someone that challenges you and actually is not afraid to hurt your feelings to make you better.
Yeah.
And I think with the Shedeur Sanders thing is, a lot of people just didn't want the baggage and all the hype that goes with it. I mean,
I don't think that the risk reward was not high enough. The reward was not high enough because, and when I say risk, that maybe he doesn't pan out to be what you think, but there's going to be extra baggage with his daddy.
Well,
any way you slice it.
Well, yeah, and the spotlight and the security, and I mean, look at Tim Tebow. He played minor league baseball and worked very hard at it and was actually pretty good.
Yep.
And but the amount of security and prepping that had to be done just for him to show up to an away game. I mean, I remember the Crawdads had that. Like, the only reason I got in to see him take batting practice live on the field, is because I got a friend over there, and I promised that I'd stay back where nobody could see me.
Right.
But the point is that there's so much that goes with that, and so much investment that's into it. Dallas would have been the perfect place.
Well, because it's a circus anyway.
Right. It would have been the perfect place because Jerry would have never let that get above him.
Right.
He wouldn't have.
No, I agree.
But that is the only place. And the fact that he went to Cleveland and they've got a guy that's like 40 years old that's probably going to be their starter.
Yep.
The state of the NFL is really messed up right now. And what I mean by that is everything is so offensive driven.
Yep.
But they're trying to come up with things through scientific study instead of the things that have been going on since the Olympics got started. God let mankind, he created sports so mankind doesn't kill each other.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And so there's a place to go out there in the arena and fight it out and all this, shake hands, go home, or be mad at each other, go home. It doesn't matter. But you can go out and do it. Okay? Well, what's happening in football is they're not going out and fighting it out anymore. They're going out and throwing the ball over here, and this guy's running really fast, and all of a sudden he figures out, wait a minute, these defensive guys are not only bigger, stronger, but they're faster, and when they hit me, they're going to kill me. All right? So instead of lining up and running the tush push, running the wedge, running isolation, you can't get away from the dynamics of a game. Why is there so much flag football right now?
Oh, yeah.
Why? I just talked to a guy yesterday, it's a friend of mine, whose son's been playing flag football. He's just not ready for him to play football because he thinks he's going to get killed. That's okay. All right, no problem. But
it's not made for everybody.
Why is there so much flag football? Because they're trying to make football all across the board when that's not football.
Yeah.
That's just passing.
Yeah.
Okay, football is lining up in the trenches.
Yeah.
And seeing who's the toughest. Bottom line, you can't. It's like baseball. You can come out with all these metrics you want to. Well, if you swing at this degree angle here and do that. Listen, what about the kid that drives the ball really well down through the ball and hits it on the ground? Well, the chances are that he won't have as many hits if he hits.
Well, what you got to have is you've got to have coaches that understand and have a different view of how things should work instead of just doing what's the we've done it in education. We take the latest, greatest thing that comes down the pike, where it works or not, because this has got to be better what we're doing.
Yeah.
Well, if we just did read, writing, and arithmetic, we wouldn't have to worry about it. One more final thing before we get out of here, I got to go fight fires. They're still working on the college football playoffs, kind of tweaking that a little bit. I think we will differ on this because I don't want the SEC or the Big Ten or anybody to come out and say, we deserve more spots because we're better than everybody.
The only problem is if it's true.
But how do you know? How do you get there?
How does Ole Miss not get in last year? How does
well,
Georgia,
one of the
2 years ago before the playoffs started, how does Georgia not get in? They lost one game all year to Alabama in the SEC championship, but yet they couldn't get in.
But
and everybody says,
I'm
well,
pretty
got
sure
it right. Michigan was the best. Georgia and Michigan play. I'd like to see that.
But I'm pretty sure that a lot of that comes from the opinion side and not.
Of course.
I am. That's why I don't like the committee. I want statistics.
There shouldn't be any college football playoff, like things to talk about. You have these divisions, these winners advance. It takes out all the fluff. Then a conference, to your point, can't say, well, we have the best teams, we ought to be in. That's not up for discussion if you want to have a true playoff system. If you want to have the best teams in, then it's no different than what they've been doing the last 15 years.
Well, you take to me, and I don't like automatic seeding based on your conference. I want to see the four conference champions. They get invited to the party. And then you look at how everybody's stacked up, because you could have two teams in Conference B that are statistically well above a conference champion from Conference C, because all the conferences aren't the same. They don't have the same amount of strength. So I want to see it done based on who you played, how you played, what the outcome, how you played against common opponents, all that kind of stuff. And the other thing I want to see the SEC go to 9 conference games like the other conferences.
Yeah, I don't like that we played them and the metrics of that, because players get hurt and it's football, and it's really not apples and apples when you do it that way.
Well, see, even though I don't like the way the Florida State thing worked.
Yeah,
okay,
but that was the rules at that time.
I understand,
and I agree with you.
But I'm saying Florida State did not get in because their quarterback got hurt. I don't like that. I don't care how you're doing at the end of the season. It needs to be, did I earn the right to go based on what I did over the season?
Right, and I agree with that. The problem is the criteria were the best teams, and when that boy got hurt, they were not one of the best
right,
teams.
And I don't like –
and I understand.
Best team is an opinion. That's not
like
a fact.
I said,
that's an opinion.
The only way to do that is to have the champions play.
Yeah.
It's the only way to do it. Then there is no discussion. The High School Athletic Association used to have a great thing, and now they're bringing all these metrics and power rankings and all this stuff.
But isn't part of that because they can't what am I trying to say? Because now we've got so many different conferences, divisions.
Well, yeah, but that can be done away with. First of all, they can put everybody that's in a division, like in a classification, in a conference. You don't need to have all this. Listen, people talk about the cost of transportation.
You're talking about the split conferences?
Yeah,
I don't
ridiculous.
like the split conferences.
Split conference is terrible. And the thing about, it costs too much to travel. In 1988, gas was 88 cents, okay, because that's when I started driving. All right? In theory, every 10 years, something should double based off of inflation, okay?
Right.
All right? And I say every 10 years. Let's just say every 15. So theoretically, gas should be $5 to $6 a gallon. Don't tell me that about, it costs too much to travel. Everything's about convenience. When you make things convenient, they're no longer special. They don't mean anything. It's just habit forming, right? It's like when I went to my grandparents' house when I was a kid, that was a big deal because we lived off, and I never got to see them. But if your grandparents live across the street from you, you don't think nothing about going over. And we got in this habit of making everything too easy and too convenient, and we need to help the schools and listen. The schools can help themselves. The problem is we got everybody else wanting to help instead of schools helping themselves.
Well, you got
And there's a lot of issues. Nothing's perfect.
To me, you got too many outside influences to try to make the decisions instead of the people that it really affects. That's kind of what it boils down to. I do want to mention one thing before we go, and you probably knew this too. I don't know if you did or not. Former Cobb County Superintendent Glenn Barger passed
Mr.
away.
Barger, yeah, he gave me my first job.
Iconic. He gave me a job.
Yeah.
I worked at Bunker.
Yeah.
He was already at central office when I got there, but he was a teacher. He was an administrator.
Yeah.
He was a school board member. He was a superintendent. I don't think he was he a school board member or a county commissioner? He was county commissioner.
Yeah. What's interesting, I talked to Michael Wyatt last week, and Michael was an honorary pallbearer at his funeral this weekend. But Michael was telling me that his dad, Charlie Wyatt, actually taught Glenn Barger in high school.
Don't surprise me.
And then was the principal there. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just a lot of history there with Mr. Barger, like Aaron Lale, who is one of his nephews. I coached him at Fred T. Ford a long, long time ago, and Mr. Barger pretty much helped give him my first baseball job. He and Miss Debbie Long,
right,
at Maiden. You know, he saw me work with the kids, even though I was young and out of college and everything, and he told me that he's really glad and with everything that happened, we won a state championship. He was really excited. He made a big deal out of it at the board meeting.
Yeah.
And, he was always about the kids, but what was amazing, though, is he was about the integrity of the system in itself. And I think that's what made him special is I never heard anything about him.
Right.
I always heard about the school system and the decisions he had to make.
Right.
And he tried, and I truly believe that every decision that he tried to make or did make was in the best interest of, the county school system and the individual, and he's just I'm so glad I got to know him.
Yep. Oh, I agree.
He's such a good man. Yeah.
Great guy. Yeah. All right, guys, have a good day. I got to go put fires out. See you next time.